of you. We've got a few things just to run through in terms of it's the usual thing. You've got chat and question and answers in the sidebar that you can use, plenty of emojis to express yourselves, and the opportunity to raise hands, although we're going to do a bit of a 15-minute conversation and then the opportunity to take questions at the end. So I thought just to get the session going, we would have a bit of an icebreaker and a quick fire round for Laura and Matt, but that you can all join in as well in the chat bar. So please do put your answers in there. So it's 5 really quick questions that you need to choose from. So Laura and Matt.
Tricky by name, tricky by nature. I'm getting worried right now, Lisa.
No. Seaside or countryside?
Oh, seaside.
Seaside.
Seaside. Cat or dog?
Dog.
Sunrise or sunset?
Both.
No, you got to pick one. That's cheating.
Sunrise.
Sunset.
Oh, favourite season of the year?
Spring.
Winter.
It's good. We're going to have some disagreements going through here. Cup of tea or G&T?
G&T.
It's Friday afternoon.
G&T.
G&T.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, guys. We've got some answers going into the chat bar, so that's brilliant. People have found it and know where to go. So I'm going to hand across straight to Laura, who started as a councillor, a district councillor about 6 years ago now, isn't it? And a couple of years becoming a cabinet member at the new Dorset Council. And the session is really just looking into the challenge of engagement and the dynamics between our residents and our officers and members themselves. So hand it over to you, Laura.
Thanks, Lisa, and hi everyone. It's great to be here on a Friday, not in the pub because we're not allowed to be in the pub on a Friday, but hopefully it won't be too long.
And we never really go to the pub on a Friday afternoon.
We don't go to the pub on a Friday.
Far too busy.
Oh, really busy till like really late at night, overworking and things. So yeah, exactly. But yeah, I thought it'd be really interesting. One of the things that really fascinates me about being in local government and working in local government is as a councillor, as a member, it's particularly weird, I think, because you're working, but it's not a job, it's a role, but it is a job, because if you don't do it properly, people get cross. And all of that kind of stuff about pre-election, you're knocking on people's doors and saying, hello, I'm just like you, I'm a totally normal person, well, not totally normal, but you know, I'm just like you, and I'll represent you on the council. And then literally as soon as you're on the council, you start talking in this really strange language, and you know, you have a portfolio, which is something a sixth form art student carries around, and you know, and you get into all these meetings and you think, oh, am I good enough because I'm not speaking this weird local government language? And then gradually you start to become better and you start to speak this weird language. And then the people that elect you haven't got a clue what you're talking about. So it's that weird challenge of how do you translate what we're doing every day into what people can understand, not in a patronising way, just in a normal speak way. And honestly, I don't know about you, Matt, but all my normal friends that don't work in local government, if they ever hear the word consultation, you know, again, it will be too soon. But we have to consult on stuff, but people are sick to death of it and it just turns them off straight away.
I think most of my friends work in the health service or education, so they've all got their own version of English, which is what we're talking about, isn't it? You know, I think it's fascinating talking to somebody like Laura about becoming a councillor. You know, when you became a councillor for Dorset Council, there was 82 of you were elected. We actually had like about over 1,000 people who stood for those seats. So there were loads of people who were really disappointed they didn't get to be a councillor. But they're still out there not talking this strange council language. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I get to be the returning officer. What the hell does that mean? You know, hello, I'm back. You know, yeah. It's, you know, we just have these crazy titles for things. I'm not a big reader of some of the papers, but I remember there was one of the famous small papers. Starts with daily and rhymes with ale, and they used to have a campaign against local government titles. I don't know whether everybody remembers that, and they were absolutely right, because we had some nonsense titles for jobs that meant absolutely nothing to anybody outside of the work that we did. Yeah. And so how do you open up to it? But Laura, how did, so when you came into the council, because I say to people coming to be elected members, you know, nobody was elected to sit in meetings. They were elected because they wanted to stand for a local issue, or they were passionate about something, or they'd had a couple of too many glasses of Pinot Grigio down the pub and somebody said, sign on here, you'll never get elected. And the next thing you know, you are elected, you know, but nobody signed up to come in, sit in loads of meetings. And yet that's what we tend to do to you.
Yes, it is. And it's actually, I was the latter, except I wasn't sort of press ganged into it, but I was in the pub and I had maybe several too many glasses of something. History does not relate what. But I was holding forth at great length about, you know, there's not enough affordable housing. We can't afford to live here. You know, I'm on an average local wage. So is my partner. We can't buy a house in the village I was born in. So, you know, who's doing something about this stuff? Because look around and there doesn't seem to be anyone doing anything. And then a friend of mine said, well, you should. And I went, yeah, okay, how? And they said, well, you stand for council. I went, don't be ridiculous. People like me don't stand for council because I'm gobby and I have tattoos and I'm not a man in a suit. And that's who stands for council, isn't it? Anyway, it turns out it isn't. So that's
well, not all of them anyway. Not
all of them. But, you know, it's really interesting because actually that kind of weird transition between, okay, I'm going to change the world, I'm going to join the council and I got in and that's fantastic, and now I'm in this room and all I want to do is do stuff, and I'm just sat in all these meetings with all these words that don't mean anything. And the challenge then for me as a councillor is to draw out of those meetings and translate into something that my residents can actually say, oh, okay, you did that thing. That's what you did. You went in and you did that thing, and that makes my life better in this way. And sometimes that's really hard to get that out of meetings.
Yeah. Do you think, you know, Joe Public, you know, man or woman on the street, do you think they actually understand what their council actually does?
Oh no, 100% not, because I didn't. I couldn't have told you. I could have told you probably when my council tax bill came through the door that there was probably a breakdown and some of it went to the police or something. You know, and this is a point with my cabinet position for social care, adult social care. And health, is that people don't understand what councils do, and should they? And does it matter? As long as they're getting that early intervention, there I go, early intervention. Oh. But as long as people aren't bowling up at your front door as a council at a point of crisis saying, I really need some help, something's gone wrong in our lives, you know, how do we open up that conversation? And I don't have the answers, but get people to understand what we do so that they know that they can get in touch and say, hi, I think I might have an issue coming down the line here, you know.
So social care, Laura, is what's that, just talking about it, is it?
Yeah, you know, just being sociable about care. See, that's the point. People don't get it. And a lot of people have almost an allergic reaction to the council. You know, to say, why don't you call the council, you know, and ask for help, or call the council and ask for some advice. Well, we're not the sort of people that call the council. It's only if you want your bins emptied. And it's that broader kind of, this is what we do, and how many people actually listen to the council unless they have a specific problem. And that's the work of councillors, I think, to go out and to be those people that just go around in the normal world and talk to people and say, well, actually, this is what we do and this is how it's helpful to you. But the actual way that you do that is interesting, because do you do that through consultations? I mean, I don't think we should consult on anything unless we actually have to. I think we should just have conversations with people. But that's just me. I know some of the stuff, Matt, you know that I would just not consult on anything. just
but I agree with you. It should be a conversation rather than a consultation. We gotta hang up with those terminologies. But look, so the last year, Laura, you've been working really, really hard on a thing called well, we started off calling it Community Shield. Actually, my adult kids got really excited when they overheard me saying, so what? So you're the director of Shield? Yeah.
Yeah, just
all of a few seconds. So Community Shield was our operation to help those people who happen to shield in our community. Sounds like it does what it said on the tin. But have you had to work really hard to explain some of that to people out there, or do you think actually people have really got it this time? Because we've just had our resident survey results back, and there've been some really good feedback actually about how we've looked after the community. But has that been despite, not because, or do you think, you know, because you fronted a lot of that?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, and that's a really good example, because actually when you need to come together really, really quickly and sort out a lot of very immediate problems, you can. you know, we had a daily meeting originally. Now it's down to weekly, but we've been meeting for a year now. And it's the highlight of my week because you've got all the people from community groups, from charitable sector. And, you know, when we were here sort of this time last year, everybody just really quickly said, okay, what skills have we got? Let's just send people, you know, highways guys, they drive around the place a lot. They can go shopping. And then the volunteer centre can coordinate that. That's great, done. You know, we weren't sitting in big meetings. And I think that immediacy of COVID has actually led to people just going, no, we don't need those barriers. That's not the point of this. And so what we're trying to really capitalise on that work now and actually use that. And how can we take that forward? So all the stuff we're doing in adults is about, it's not about social services, actually. We do the statutory things. We do the things that we have to look after people. And we want to do them better. How do we do them better? We plant them firmly in the middle of the community. And how do we do that? Well, we do that with our community partners, and we've already got them on board because we've been working together for a year. So actually, I think it broke down a lot of that, you know, that block.
So when you started this, you weren't actually sat in a room though, were you?
No, it was all virtual. And I still have some of the people that I've been working with for a year.
Do you think that helped break down some of those barriers?
I think it does help. I think it helps massively because, I mean, the first cabinet I went to, we had a chat.
First, what? You had a meeting in a cabinet?
We had a meeting in a cabinet. So the first, yeah, but you know, I think probably cabinet's okay to use, actually. I think that's probably okay. Anyway, the first meeting that I went to of the cabinet, which is people that are in charge of stuff, thank you. There was a guy there that was working for Democratic Services, you remember, and he was very smartly dressed, and basically he was taking the notes, he was organising the meeting, he was going to distribute the notes to people afterwards. And an older gentleman came in and said, oh, this is great, I'm coming to my first cabinet meeting of this new council, a member of the public wanting to look. And he said, so you'll be taking the notes, will you? And where do I sit and where's the coffee? And I said, well, actually, I'm a cabinet member. And he went, oh. And I thought, that's because we're in a room together, and I don't look like the cabinet. I dress quite scruffy. I usually wear trainers, you know, and you know that's my choice. So you know, I could wear a dress and be all smart, but I'm not. But actually, virtually, doesn't matter, does it? You're only seeing someone's face. You can blur your background. You know, I could be sat in a skip. It doesn't make any difference. I'm not. I'm sat in my mum's very nice house. But thank you, mum. But yeah, you know. Not quite got the hang. But it doesn't matter, does it? It's a great leveler and it's a great equaliser. And also, all the people that have all those pressures on their time, they can't be zipping around to meetings every 5 minutes, but we can go to a meeting within 5 seconds from the last one.
Yeah, I've just seen a comment in the chat bar from Pete around virtual world is great for inclusion, and I agree with that. I mean, it's, you know, we'll have this discussion, I'm sure, over the next coming months when we can move back to having meetings in the real world, you know, where I have to remember where I find my suit trousers hanging up somewhere and stuff. But all do
that, Matt, please.
What? Don't forget where
everybody wear trousers, please.
Yeah. But you know, I think that's moved back into either hybrid space or staying in the virtual space or staying in the real space is a conversation we're going to have. And I agree with Pete. I think virtual world has been really good for inclusion. It's also made us really accessible in a way that perhaps we haven't been able to be before. I've said this. I've got multiple screens in front of me here, which I use for managing different meetings. But it means that I can be sat in a meeting here. I've been sat in a cabinet meeting, and then I've literally left it on here, and I've gone across to speak at a national conference on the screen next to me because I can do that. Now, previously, I'd have trucked up to London. That's 7 hours out of my day just with travel.
Exactly, and the green impact of that as well is huge, isn't it?
But yeah, and I think that's really good. But the engagement piece, is, you know, which we've been talking about, I think is makes us accessible, means that you know, people can I mean, maybe they feel more confident to say it in this format.
I think there's that, but it's also members of the public. I mean, Lisa, you know, we've done some really good work, haven't we? I say we, I mean you, with digital champions. You know, volunteers signing up and actually going and talking virtually to people that might want to get more technologically advanced. So actually, you could have older people perhaps that don't want to go out in the dark on a cold, dark night to a council meeting and sit for 3 hours watching us all just have an argument. You know, but they're quite happy to just have it on YouTube in their own home.
We've had nearly 500 people
Yeah.
attend planning meetings.
I
We've
know, it's
never had
astonishing.
500 people attend a planning meeting in the real world.
No, and so that point of being great for inclusion is brilliant. But then it comes back to the language we use and how we exclude people just by walking through a door and becoming a different person because you're in a council now. So there's this kind of, you know, you have to use that language. And I think maybe the virtual world that we've been living in has taken that down a bit as well, because it's hard to just stick to using all those big words and all those ridiculous acronyms when, you know, your cat's just shoved its backside in front of you on the screen, or in my case, your parrot's happily swearing in the background. You know, so it is a good leveler, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think again, we got a great point from Pete there in the chat bar about open up a whole new part of society, younger or less physically mobile.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you know, for me, I'm looking ahead as chief executive to the next set of elections when we elect the 82 councillors, members who come in. You know, is there opportunity for the political parties to recruit more younger people who conform just like you do, Laura? No, people like you, Laura, who've got some real lived world experience, who haven't just decided to get to the end of their career and go, do you know what, I'm retired now, I think maybe I'll become a counsellor.
It
Actually,
shouldn't be a hobby with a title. It shouldn't be a hobby with a title. And I just quickly get my soapbox out and stand on it. It shouldn't be. And the amount of people that I've talked to, younger people, who have said, I haven't, you know, how do I get into politics? Do I study politics at uni? No, don't do that. It's the worst thing you could do. Go and get a spatula and shove some leaflets through doors. And the reason you need a spatula is because letterboxes bite. And if you, they do,
and so
and they
hurt the other side.
No, even if there aren't any dogs, they hurt your knuckles. You know, I think it does. It's all about breaking down those barriers. It's all about getting rid of the obstacles. You know, if somebody wants to do something, whether it's stand for election or, you know, we're doing some work at the moment with our day opportunities. All we've done is go out and say, what does a better day look like for you? If you're using our services, what do you want to do with your day? What would make it better?
And I think that's a really, really helpful conversation. You know, we've got our corporate vision for Dorset, great place to live, work, and visit. Really simple, because we want people to be able to understand that, and I want people who work for us and people that we work for to understand what it is that we're seeking to try and do.
Exactly.
It is as simplest. It is what it is. Live, work, and visit. Dorset's a great place, but sometimes we just need to have those simple conversations with people.
But
what would make life?
Absolutely, we shouldn't be, especially in social care, we shouldn't be going in and saying, right, now I'm going to do a lovely big assessment and it's 47 pages long, so sit down, this could take a while, and then, you know, what are your needs? People who use social care's needs are the same as everybody else's needs. They want to have a good day.
Yeah.
That's it. It's really easy. So we need to be asking more of those open-ended questions, because I really think that's the way that we get people engaged, that's the way people stay engaged and get inspired and get excited about councils, because it's not just weirdos like me and you that get excited about councils.
I'm really interested in terms of the thought that you commented about when you came into the cabinet, that you become this different person.
Yeah.
You know, and I think there is an element of, and you know, I've had this discussion with the organisation. You know, when we come into our workplace, we kind of forget who the real people that we are in our home and social life, and become this professional world. You know, I become the chief executive of Dorset Council. You know, or my planning officers become planning officers. You know, and they talk in a different way. And I go, look, just read the letter back. If you were reading the letter you've just sent to a member of your family, would you be able to explain it?
Yeah.
And I think we need to hold the mirror up to ourselves far more, and actually go look at it and go, do you know what, if I got that on behalf of a relative, I became what? So
exactly.
my wife and I, my wife mainly has been supporting her mum through COVID. She's clinically extremely vulnerable. She's been going through treatment, and the letters that we've received from her council, impenetrable.
Yeah.
Pages and pages and pages, and just make it really. And I guess that gives you a renewed sense of, let's make this simpler.
Yeah, it does.
But sometimes, you know, less is more, but it can be more difficult. You know, I think it's Mark Twain who said it used to take him at least 3 weeks to write a good impromptu speech.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so to write that short letter takes a lot longer than writing a 4-pager.
Oh, definitely. And you don't have to subscribe to all the conventions that you think you have to subscribe to. You know, when I speak to people on the phone and they've got a bit of casework, you know, I'd like to talk about my dad's social care package, or, you know, what's going on, why, you know, he's been discharged from hospital and I don't understand, I don't know who's doing what, I don't know what the hospital are doing, he needs a bed frame, but who's organising it? And, you know, maybe they just get, because all my details are on the website, someone ring me up, and then they think, hang on, I've got a normal person on the end of the phone that's just going to use words and say, okay, well, actually, you know, I've had a word with our officers and your dad's there and he'll come back, and then on Tuesday, and all of those things, we make it so hard for ourselves. And ultimately, it's only hard for ourselves because the next time the council or the health service or whatever organisation it is has occasion to engage with that person, they've got a barrier up already. But if we start it simply.
Absolutely. So Laura, we talk in social care terms, we talk about strength-based services. Now, this is not about doing weights. You know, so what are strength-based services? That's
nonsense. It's just, all it is asking what can you do instead of what can't you do. That's it. That's literally it. And I have this fundamental problem with going to somebody who might be accessing social care or need a bit of support, you know, to live their day in the way they want to live it, and saying, right, head on one side. What can't you do? I mean, how demoralising is that? I'd be horrified if somebody spoke to me like that. I would be absolutely horrified. But if somebody said, okay, so what do you want to do with your day? Well, I want to do this. I want to volunteer in a charity shop. I want to go and work in admin somewhere. I don't know. I want to do anything. And it's okay. Well, what do you need to get you there? Do you need help showering? Great. That's what you need in order to live your life to the best of your ability in a way that you want to, in a place that you want to. That's it. That's all strength-based is, but it sounds nonsense, isn't it? Yeah. It just sounds absolute nonsense. So, yeah, I mean, there's lots of organisations out there that are doing some really good work. The Think Local, Act Personal, and all those kind of organisations sort of trying to debunk local government speak, I guess. But it fascinates me.
But it's about, as James has put in the chat, you know, it is about, you know, getting the service done to make services human-centered again.
Yeah.
You know, but putting the individual at the centre of it. You know, thinking about if this were a family, how would we want to treat, you know, other members of our family? You know, like I was saying, if I was to receive that communication, what would I think when I received that? You know, when I send something in to the council via electronic means or via the web or even a physical letter, dare I say, these days, you know, the response I get back, does that make me feel cared for? Does it make me feel that I've been listened to? You don't necessarily always like the decision, but do you understand what's happening?
And were you heard? Did someone listen to you? That's it. I mean, we get so much communication from people that could have been solved if things had just been explained properly and people's points considered. Even if you say, okay, I can't do that thing because we don't have enough money, or because the rules say, the legislation says we're not allowed to do that, but I understand what you're saying, and I can actually talk to somebody else about it, and I'll feed it back. Nothing might happen, but I hear you. You know, that's really powerful, really powerful. And I agree that making services human-centered again. I mean, service user. And we still all use it from time to time.
We do.
Why can't they just be a person?
Absolutely. I could listen to you guys all evening, even though the sun is shining out there. And I've heard firsthand, Laura, of the impact that you have on people's lives, because my family live in your area, and it's always, oh, Laura's sorted this, or Laura's doing that. So I know the huge impact and the energy that you bring to what you do. So it's just fantastic. So it is time for questions. If anybody has a question they want to pop in or raise their hand to.
I can see the
Do you see the chat now?
And please, no really difficult questions like Lisa asked us at the start. I mean, cat versus dog, really. God, my dog's left the room in disgust now.
Sam says, what's your pet peeve council phrase or word? Mine is channel shift. I don't know what that means. I actually don't know what that means. Is that a digital thing?
Just putting stuff online. Yeah. We don't like it. We don't use it anymore.
Okay.
No.
I'm glad you read that, because I didn't see the F first of all.
Now mine's one that I heard Matt use this week, so slap on the wrist. At pace.
At pace. We're
What?
hearing that a lot now.
What does that mean?
Was I talking about my running?
No.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Fair
What
enough.
do you mean? Do you mean do it quickly?
Yep.
Right.
But yeah.
I know the reason behind that pace, because if you do it quickly, people go, "Oh, you haven't done it properly." So you mean in a reasonable? But I don't know why I don't like it. What about you?
I'm not a big fan of at pace, and channel shift also. Just all I can think about channel shift is changing channels on the telly.
Who's got the remote?
Yeah. What was it? Well, one of mine's is digital leadership. So and Andy, who's hosting this, my role for Solace was as lead spokesman for digital leadership. Well, what the heck's that all about? Surely leadership is just leadership. It's not. I didn't do everything digitally because but I'm operating in a digital.
Conversations. You used to go to a star chamber as a department. You would go to a star chamber, and I think that dates back to Henry VIII's time.
No way.
They used to do budgets and.
I'm going to be honest, Andy. I think I've definitely heard the expression a couple of times in the last 12 months. I don't think we've hosted a star chamber. We had a budget cafe.
Yeah.
I'd rather have that. That's it's conceal, isn't it? It's
a whole bunch of people turned up with their menagerie of birds, thinking we said budgie cafe, and they were really disappointed. There was.
If anyone would like to raise their hand and ask a question direct, please do it.
Yeah, Lisa and Laura are taking questions.
And sacking our chief exec.
Someone must want to put Matt on the spot.
I can ask one if nobody else has one.
Lisa.
Well, I've got you both in a room.
Go for it, Trickey.
No, I was interested in, as well, Laura, in terms of the connection into national politics, really, and how how that relationship is, and how connected you feel we're able to influence. Because obviously, things in Dorset, some things are just out of our control anyway, aren't we? So.
Yeah. That's a really interesting question because, disclosure, I actually work for an MP.
She doesn't mean me.
No, exactly. So I work for a member of Parliament as his caseworker. So that's quite interesting because I deal with people's problems. I don't really necessarily deal with the policy side of things. Do I feel like I've got a line into Westminster and connected to Westminster? Yes. That's because of my job. If I didn't, I do sit on an LGA board as well, so that's quite helpful.
What's the LGA?
Local Government Association. Actually, that's not too bad. That does what it says on the tin. But I think, sort of more broadly, you can feel quite disconnected. And I think a new MP starting would feel the same as I did when I started at the council, because you think, well, I'm going straight to the heart of where things are done. And it will take you 2 or 3 years to do anything, And so I think that sense of frustration because we can't move things forward at pace. See what I did there? That is quite frustrating. But I have to say, we've had sort of weekly and then fortnightly, and I think they're still going on, but I don't go to them. Catch-ups with all the Dorset MPs that Matt hosts. And that's been really, really helpful because actually sometimes the MPs can just come along and go, I haven't got a clue about this because this is local government. So what are you doing? And then we can tell them. And I think one of the big misconceptions that I certainly had was that it was some way a hierarchy. So if you did really well in local council, you then decide to stand as MP. And it was sort of natural career progression. And therefore MPs were somehow above local councils. And it's totally different. And I consider it completely equal. And having worked for an MP, I can confidently say that I never want to be one because it's a really, really hard job.
That was the next question that was coming.
Yeah, it was. But most people would think that somehow MPs are sort of in charge of us. But most people do think that. My friends do, and it's
don't even go there with that hierarchy. I remember when I was chief executive of 3 district councils, and somebody said to me, "So is the chief executive of the county council your boss then?"
Ah. Yeah. But how much do people need to know this stuff?
Absolutely.
I think we should be teaching practical politics, not politics party, but practically. in schools. People should know this stuff. They should know when you grow up and you get a house and you pay council tax, what you're paying it for. When you vote, what you're voting for.
Yeah.
Just basics. I'll do it free. Give the
No.
teachers a lesson off. You know.
I agree. My daughter's 15 and she says that they don't teach you skills for life, really, to be able to participate and join
Very
in.
profound from a 15-year-old.
Yes.
Yeah. You taught her well. I mean, I did try and infiltrate my son's school. He's left now. He's 18, no, nearly 19. That's terrifying. But I did go and do some sessions at his school, and he was absolutely horrified.
Yes, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, Andy, have we had any more questions in? Or everybody very quiet this evening?
They are very quiet, which
Too
is
much
really,
gin?
But yeah, probably. I mean, there's a lot of Dorset people in the house, so yeah, it could be too much gin. I know the influence you have over them. It was the talk of last year's Festival of the Future, wasn't it? Your gin habits.
Oh, yeah.
Lisa's gin habits. The only thing I was talking about was bacon sandwiches, or you know.
You were in your camper van, weren't you? And
You
you
were
hosting gin-related sozzle evening sessions.
I did say this week we need to get you back in the camper van in order to, as part of our recruitment campaign for our transformation roles.
To be fair, the camper van's waiting until it can be used again, and I daren't drive it around locally because people stare at you at the moment.
Yeah, because you might get in trouble.
What are you doing in your camper van? It's locked down.
Yeah, shouldn't be down here in Dorset, Matt. You know,
yeah,
it's not a good thing. There's a serious accusation being thrown up in the chat. Lisa, I don't know whether we have any HR representation, but apparently Lisa is chaining people to desks.
Outrageous.
Yeah. Shocking, isn't it?
Outrageous.
Paid service. I will be taking that seriously. Sam, thank you for feeling that you could bring that to me.
And it's anonymous, or was that Mr. McLaren?
No, it's not anonymous. So I will be having conversations.
Okay, you've just opened up a can of worms there, Sam. I think there couldn't be a better way on a Friday afternoon to sort of finish. And I've just been enthralled. It's been a great conversation. I think you guys could have gone for about 5 hours and barely taken a breath, really.
Professional wibblers.
I think it's really useful. It's a really interesting dynamic to see all three of you from Dorset talking about the real delivery sort of conversation. Let's get below the rhetoric, and let's
we're going to get under the skin of it, Andy, and then we're going to move at pace. All right.
But get more young people as counsellors.
Once we shifted the channels, and
yeah, that's what we're going to do.
My worst time at Torbay was when they had this weird system where everyone put up 3 people, and I think it was the Lib Dems took it by a landslide, but it meant all their third choices got in. So I went to a council meeting, and it was a little bit like a geriatric ward. There was many people dragging around things on drips and stuff like that and breathing. I just went, this really isn't good for the council overall. This has clearly gone too far one way. And so I agree, you want dynamic, you want people who don't view it as a hobby,
But to do that, you've also got to get rid of imposter syndrome, and that's very, very difficult to do because I've still got it. And I think that's one of the things that makes people think they have to behave in a certain way. I think I shared a quote on my social media from Terry Pratchett, who is literally my favourite author in the whole entire universe ever. One of his characters, he was talking about one of his characters, and he said, Nanny's way of behaving was to pick something that she knew she was good at and just do it as hard as possible at any given time, whether it was appropriate or not. And actually, there is an element of truth in that, because if you're in a place where you're a leader and you're elected to represent people, you know, people saw me on their doorstep asking for them to lend me their vote. They shouldn't see something different just because I got in.
Yeah.
And if we can have more people doing that and being honest like that, then other people outside the council will go, well, actually, I could do that. But as soon as you have people just reading scripted bits of paper that the officers have written for them, no one's going to get involved.
Yeah.
Agree with that. Lisa, we've got a question in the chat bar from Pete. You've identified the issues of communication and engagements. What can you do to bring that common sense approach to everyone at every level in the council? I think, well, Pete, it's a collective share, isn't it? We've got to all talk about it and keep talking about it, you know, and keep challenging ourselves. You know, if we see, it's a bit like, you know, one of our behaviours is recognition and respect. Well, if we see something that doesn't make sense, then let's not just leave it hanging there. I mean, I think I gave the example that when we created the new organisation, about 6 months in, I got an email from somebody in my inbox, and they still had their old sign-off from their previous council. And I was slightly offended by that, because I thought, hang on a second, we've been Dorset Council for 6 months. And I thought, hang on a second, I'm offended by it, but this person's obviously been using this email to send to everybody else in the organisation. There's nobody mentioned it to them and said, hang on, bit of respect. You don't work for that authority anymore because they don't exist. You work for this new council. So we've all got to take a bit of recognition but to do that with respect, I think, into the organisation. So if we see things around us, you know, be prepared to challenge them. Be prepared to say to a colleague, do you know what? I read that joint email you sent to everybody and just I didn't understand it. Yeah. Can you simplify it for me? Because actually that just helps to get that. So Pete, I think absolutely, it's a collective approach that we've got to do. And to make sure that everyone gets it.
And we have got to support each other in that, haven't we? Because it's really, really important. You know, like I get a briefing note about stuff that I bring to meetings if I'm bringing an item or something, and I always say, you know, there are things that I need to not forget. Can you put them in bullet points so I can just pick them up and talk about them? And you know that I won't forget all this important work that we've done together. But can it be bullet points? Because I don't want to just read this piece of text because everyone's switched off. You know, and if we normalise that, normalise being normal, we will get there.
Just allow people to be themselves.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, wrapping up, I want to say massive thanks. One of the things that's for you three, that's been an amazing conversation. The video is going to be great. And I would say there are so many leaders. I mean, Dorset Council, I know a lot of you guys, you know, I'm in the Southwest and we've done some things. So, but there are so many leaders. It's not Matt, you know, it's not Laura. There are so many leaders in the organisation. And if everyone is on the same page, and like Matt was saying, you pick these things up, you tackle them, you nip them in the bud as a buddy, as a co-worker, as a peer, before it gets to a point where suddenly the chief exec is seeing something and go, "Ooh, bit peeved with that, you know, why's that gone unchecked for the last 6 months?" You know, so it's all about leaders everywhere, and you guys have got loads of them, and you got a great vision. You're a new council, and the dog was never going to go through this without playing up. I think that's got to be the time where thank you so much. That was brilliant. We're going to move into the lounge if people can still be about. Just go and sit on a table or mess around in the speed networking if you want to try it. I'll bring the session to a close, and thank you so much, everyone. That's been brilliant.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Lisa, for hosting.
That's all right.
Great job.
Have a good weekend, everybody.